Hello guys, Faxinaru here from Motion Swift Synthesis. In this video I would like to show you our TH3 Acid and our TH3 Beast plugins. They come as a bundle along with some additional modular 4 patches for the scope platform. So you get these two devices, TH3 Acid, TH3 Beast, and a number of modular patches that also come with presets. You can check out all about the modular patches, the TH3 fuzzy boxes, in another video. Just go to our website, www.oceanswift.net, for all the information and the other videos. Also, in this video, we'll just kind of demonstrate the synth, look at it as sort of an online manual for the synth. I'm not going to be checking out the sound itself. So if you want to check out the sound, just again head on over to our website. There's sound examples and videos and whatnot for these devices. So as you can probably see, the TH3 Acid and the Beast are really simple, especially the Acid, sort of bassline lead 303-like synths. They're not exact copies, or don't mean to be exact copies of a 303. They don't mean to exactly emulate the sound, but they kind of mean to emulate what you can do with the 303. And it actually has pretty close sound to a 303 in general, and a really nice sound of its own. So we think from all the synths that are kind of like a 303, but whether it be like hardware clones or software or whatever, we kind of stand by that these really sound great. So we encourage you to check them out and check the sound out for yourself. Demos are also available on our website, so you can check the sound without committing to purchase. So without further ado, let's go over the parameters of the synth a little bit. Let's start with the Acid and then go to the Beast. So let's go over the knobs and the parameters. There's not much going on here. Over here to the left, it is a one-osc synth, and you have a switch where you can choose either a saw or a square shape. Then you got the tuning knob, which moves by semitone up from -24 to +24, 2 octaves across. At the middle position is exactly as played by MIDI. Then you got the filter section, which includes cutoff, resonance, envelope modulation, decay amount, and accent, and the main volume control. Now, all the parameters for the filter are pretty straightforward, as you know them. But let's talk a little bit just for a second about the accent knob. So what happens as you open the accent more to the right, then notes that have accent actually kind of, it gives a little boost to the decay section of the filter. Just kind of changes a little tiny bit the sound of that particular note that you hit. And the way to trigger the accent notes is, if you're playing MIDI, every note under 100 velocity will just be a normal note. It will not trigger the accent even if it's all the way to the right. Now, every note that has a velocity 100 or above will trigger the accent circuit, and the depth of modulation, the pronunciation of the accent sound is determined by this knob over here, as you can see. So you should just try it out, put some MIDI line and put some notes below 100 velocity and some above, and you'll immediately hear what this does. So it behaves a little bit differently than the accent on an actual 303, but it still behaves really, really cool. It's a cool feature. So that's for the TH3 Acid. Again, it's really simple. It comes with a few presets, not a ton, because there's not really lots to presetize over here, right? But we have provided some starting points for you. And that's it basically for this guy. So the TH3 Acid. Now the TH3 Beast, as you can see, the filter section is exactly the same as the TH3 Acid. Exact same parameters, everything is the same. But there are other differences, the OSC section and then some added effects and stuff. So let's go over that right now. So over here on the Acid, you had one OSC, and you could choose between a square and a saw. On the TH3 Beast, you actually have two oscillators, and inside, so let's look at like one of them, right? They're identical both sides. So if we look at the left one over here, so as you notice right away, instead of a switch, you have a knob. So instead of choosing between a square and a saw shape, you can mix between a square and a saw shape, where all the way over here it'll be the square, all the way over here it'll be the saw, and at the middle position it's a 50-50 mix, and whatever other position you want to put it on. And then you got a pulse width parameter for this square. So over on the Acid, it's a pure square all the time. Here, If it's on the middle position, it will be the same type of squares on the acid, but you can get various rectangle shapes by moving the pulse width knob, whether you want a thinner or thicker pulse sound. So over here on the bottom, again, you don't see the tuning knob over here because the tuning is a little bit different. You can tune both oscs separately, as you can see. Instead of having just the coarse knob, which corresponds to the tuning knob over here, you also have a fine tune knob. So you can go semitones and then fine tune it a little bit. It's really cool if you use both of these oscillators. So over here, obviously it's one osc, but you don't have, even if you use like two TH3 Acid, you can't do those little tiny detunes to both sides, where you get, that sort of pseudo unison chorusy sort of sound that you can get by detuning both of the oscs. So that's for the main controls of the oscillators. There's also a retrigger button over here. What this does is it forces the oscillator to retrigger its starting phase with each new received MIDI note. It's really useful sometimes for, let's say, bass lines. Really, if you want a really tight sort of rolling bass line and you need a consistent attack portion of the sound, so you can just turn on retrigger and everything will be much tighter. Another cool trick, just a quick trick, is to, let's say, have one osc on retrigger and the other not on retrigger, and then when you mix them together over here with the mix knob, then you can get really cool sort of like, again, sort of like phasing and sort of unison-y, chorusy sort of artifacts going on. Really nice. So try it out. One osc on retrig, one osc not on retrig, and then mix them. One thing to mention about this mix knob over here is just to emphasize, you are mixing two shapes, right? So let's say you put the waveform selector on the middle, so now it's 50-50 saw and square, and same over here. So it's basically with the mix knob you can get up to mixing 4 shapes really, because if you put it on the middle, you know that it's 50-50 both of these oscs, and these are 50-50 saw and square, and it can get pretty thick and pretty cool. So that's for the osc section. Now over here, the frequency itself incoming to the osc is not modulated in any way. Here you have added modulations. Now you have one built-in modulation, which is the pitch LFO over here. Now this is a pretty standard LFO, as we provide similar functions as we provide on most of our devices. You have a waveform selector, the rate, divisions. Now the rate of the LFO will either be the rate knob or the divisions based on your BPM that you set here. And that depends on whether the sync mode is turned on or turned off. So if the sync mode is turned off, then this knob will control the rate of the LFO. And if it's turned on, then the divider will control the rate of the LFO. You also have a retrigger button. And again, this is similar to the retrigger on the oscillators. What it does is retriggers the starting phase of the LFO with each new MIDI note. And you also have the phase knob over here, which determines what that start phase will be. So this knob will kind of not do anything unless the retrigger is turned on, and then you can control the start phase as well if you want to. So that's for the internal pitch modulation, but you also have over here the modulation, like the depth amount section. So for the LFO, this would be the knob. This would control the depth of modulation from the LFO. But you also have some other stuff over here. Let's look at it from the right to the left, actually, because the second one over here is, again, pitch modulation, and it's labeled external FM. And as you can look on the device itself, you will see that there's actually an input for this, external FM input. And you can use anything you want, whether it be like another synth, like the TH3 Acid, or something like the Aeolian Free, which has, moving around frequencies and stuff like that. So you can use that or anything you really want to pitch modulate the TH3 Beast. And these work together. You can use both the built-in one as well as the external FM modulation one. This is, again, provides a really interesting feature, and you totally change the sound of the oscs and do lots of unique stuff with it. So the next knob is the external ring modulator. So again, same as the FM, you can see that on the device itself, there is a ring input. And again, you can use anything you want, whether it be another TH3 or any other synth that you would like, or any other sound source that you would like to ring modulate the oscs. So the oscs go together once they are mixed into this ring modulator circuit. And as you move it to the right, it mixes in the ring modulated sound. Obviously, if it's on 50-50, like on the middle over here, then you would hear 50% the oscillator sound and 50% the ring modulated sound. The oscs ring modulated with the external ring input. All the way to the right, it's obviously just the result of the ring modulation circuit. And the farmost to the left is just an external input. It's an external audio input. And again, this is a crossfade mixer. So all the way to the left, you'll be hearing just the osc, just the synth itself. And all the way to the right, you'll be hearing just the external input itself. It is, again, an input on the synth, on the device. So you have the FM, the ring, and the external audio itself to be processed inside. So what this does is it allows you to, let's say I'll give you some situations, right? So let's say you have here 2 oscs, and for some reason you feel like this being a 3 osc synth. So you can basically just input, let's say something like the TH3 Acid, which has 1 oscillator, into the external input of the TH3 Beast, decide the weight of how you want to mix them, and then both of these oscs and the result of the TH3 Acid, they go together into the rest of the TH3 Beast synthesis chain. So that's just one example. Or you can, totally use something totally else, let's say the Aeolian harp, and connect it over to the external input, and then go all the way to the right, and then you can just pretty much use what it allows you is to use the filtering and the effects of the TH3 Beast without the sound source to process whatever is coming in this case, the Aeolian free harp plugin. So that's it for the basic synthesis engine. There's 2 knobs over here actually on the bottom. Actually, there's 2 more things, these 2 things. So one of them is Portamento. If you turn it on, then the synth keys will be able to glide from key to key, and the Portamento time is just simply set by this knob over here. And you have an additional filter, just a 1 knob, 6 dB, really mild, high pass filter. That basically kind of lets you clean out some of the low end. Let's say you're not making a bass line, you're making a lead or an effect or some sort of sound where you don't really want all that low end. You can take it away straight in the synth. Also, let's say you want to send it to some really heavy distortions or stuff like that. So this is useful, just to clean up the signal a little bit. Another usage would be if you're having a lot of, if you're actually connecting external stuff here and you have FM and ring modulation going on, and this could be another situation where you want to maybe just a little bit clean away the low end. So again, you can set it. Once you turn it on, then it will take effect. If you turn it off, then it's not passing through this filter at all. So that is the synthesis engine itself. On the TH3 Beast, you also have 2 built-in effects. Now, one thing I want to mention about these effects is, as you notice, on the TH3 Acid, it is the mono output. It's a monophonic synth, and also it's a mono synth, right? There's only 1 output, it's not stereo. And here, you see 2 outputs. It's a stereo synth. So the synth inside is just mono. The effects are what make it stereo. It's a stereo delay and a stereo chorus. So if you want to, for example, continue with something like the fuzzy box over here, which is a mono effect, then you can just connect the left side. You don't have to use the stereo effects over here. If you just connect the left side, it's still really the full sound, or the right side, whatever, right? It's still the full sound of the synthesis engine. So just keep that into consideration, that basically up until the effects, it's mono. Now you can obviously also just connect one side and still use the effects, but for example, something like the delay, you'll only hear, if you connect just the left side, you will hear the left side. So it'll become a mono delay. So you can do that as well. There's no problem with that, just wanted to mention it. So a delay and a chorus, the knobs are pretty straightforward. For the delay, you have time left, time right, and you also have divisions based on the BPM, again, that you set over here. If you go into sync mode, then the divisions will be the time base for the delay. If you go out of sync mode, then the knobs will be the time base for the delay. You also can cross the delays from the left to the right if you turn on this button over here. Feedback, high cut damping, and a wet and dry amount knob. And you can, again, turn it on, turn it off over here. So the last thing, the chorus. Again, pretty straightforward controls. You have a control for the chorus depth, the rate of modulation, feedback, chorus phase, and the wet dry knob. And you also have a button over here which lets you kind of go into what is called a flanger mode, and it kind of just changes the vibe of the chorus from a more chorusy sound to a more flanger-like sound. So these are the two devices. Again, they come with a bunch of fuzzy boxes. You can look over here. This is what you get with it. You get 8 patches. Well, let's see. Patches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 of them are distortion boxes, and then 2 of them are really cool ring modulator based effects, and the last 2 are talk boxes that are based on vowel filters and decimators. So there's a smaller one and a larger one, just to show you quickly for a second. So this would be the small talk. And again, the fuzzy boxes come with a bunch of presets. Each of them has a few inside. And the TH3 Beast, actually, I showed you that the TH3 Acid does not come with so many because there's not really so much in terms of presetizing. But the TH3 Beast actually has quite a few. I think something like 80 presets, 56 presets. Okay, so 56 presets for the Beast. And again, both the TH3 Beast and the TH3 Acid, you're really encouraged, obviously, to automate and play around with it. Like any 303-like device, you set the resonance kind of high, whatever. And like, I'm not talking like about basslines, right? Basslines, of course, you would kind of do something else. But if you want to make like a cool acid lead, and then send it to some distortion, send it to some delay, and then automate the cutoff, and you're in 303 heaven territory right there. So check out our Acid bundle. It's available on the Sonic Core shop. If you go again to oceanswift.net website, then there's a lot more information, demos, sound examples, and everything you will need to get you going with these devices. So I hope you enjoy these and make some really cool acid music with these. See you guys.